All right. Three, two, one. Hey, what is up, guys? Welcome to Minds Behind the Music. I am your host, LA. Here with me is my good friend Greg.
Uh,
He's helping out with the podcast today and our for our specific topic. And today's topic is the video title of is the title, as you can see from the title of this video, is Rush, specifically on how they ended. The reason I'm going to talk about this today is because their ending was deemed very unique by a lot of their listeners and a lot of like big time rock listeners.
well, isn't one of them because they were a band for since what the 50s, 60s?
Rush, I think, formed in '68, but I
Yeah,
think they're like really when they were like really touring was the '70s.
yeah.
But the the reason I want to talk about this is because I like, as some of you might know, I'm like a huge diehard fan of Rush. Like they're one of my biggest like influences, and not just in my playing, but just in my music in general. Well, as some of you know, I am a bassist and vocalist. I'm the bassist and vocalist of my band Progress Avenue,
Mm.
and so Geddy Lee in general was one of the biggest inspirations for the musician I am today.
Mm. All right.
But I'll give you guys a little insight on their breakup, since as what Greg and I were just talking about, they were touring since the mid '70s. Like they had all of the original members, including Neil Peart, were together. Like they were the official band Rush since 1974, I would have to say, after John Rutsey left during their
I was
first
gonna,
tour.
yeah, I was gonna say. I forget. Yeah, that was their last drummer, the John Ritchie.
Yeah, he was their I think he was their first drummer. Actually, he was their
Yeah,
first
that.
drummer.
Yeah, Yeah, that's who I was thinking about. I was like, wait a minute. I know it sounded John, but I forget the last name. And wasn't it because man, I forget why he left.
I know one of the big reasons is because he was having health issues. Like I know he had diabetes,
Oh yeah,
but
yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know if there was any other reason.
No, I don't think anything because at the time Rush was touring almost constantly.
Yeah.
I mean, with the Rolling Stone, I mean, the critics were always like very critical of Rush. It sounded like
Mhm.
I remember one article about Rush. They kind of said it sounds like Mickey Mouse on speed. I remember that article.
Yeah, Geddy Lee's vocals are definitely an acquired taste. Let me check my water. Oh, my water's over here. Yeah, Geddy Lee's vocals are definitely an acquired taste by a lot of people.
Mhm.
Like I personally love his voice. Like I've like probably because like I've been listening to his records since I was in high school.
I like the what I like about Rush is I like the progressions. I like the time changes.
Mhm.
I think a lot of people underestimate Rush. I think a lot of people that know mainstream Rush, they
Tom
only know
Sawyer,
Tom Sawyer and
Subdivisions, and Red Barchetta.
Fly By Night.
Yeah,
But if they've ever heard like 2112, YYZ, La Villa Stringato,
yeah.
like those
Farewell
songs,
to Kings
Pharaoh the
songs.
Kings, The Trees,
Mm.
that's an underrated song.
I still,
By Torn
I'm
the Snow.
still. Oh yeah, by Torn the Snow Dog.
Yeah.
I'm still trying to learn the trees on bass.
Yeah, that's not easy to play
Hmm.
on
And
bass.
to sing it and play it, forget about it.
Yeah, trust me. I don't know how you do that.
But yeah, I think that a lot of people, because Rush has been looked at differently by certain listeners. Like if you, for example, like there's the people that just listen to rock, and then there's the people that listen to the various specific genres in rock. You could be listening to indie rock, you could be listening to alternative rock, and you could be listening to progressive rock, which is what Rush was known for. They were a progressive rock band.
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, also you got to understand. Guitarist Alex.
Yeah,
Um,
Alex Lifeson.
Yeah, Alex Lykson. He's classically trained.
Hmm.
Like that's why you hear a lot of like classic music inside of his solos. I think
Yeah.
people seem to forget that it's progressive rock is really the reason why it's called prog, it's because there are lots of genres inside the music, right? There are lots of other genres inside the music, and that's why when I play math rock, punk, or shoegaze myself, I'm not saying classically trained, but I'm a jazz trained bassist. So
Mm.
I usually add a lot of jazz, like pentatonic scales and stuff like that inside of my bass lines because I mean technically that's how I play. I mean I've been listening to jazz since I was a kid, but yeah, man, like prog is one of those underrated rock genres in the entire world.
Yeah, I completely agree because I mean, I consider the band that I'm in currently, Progress Avenue, I would consider us to be progressive rock because of our numerous influences and the different playing styles that we have and the different ideas that we have in our music, which which I've said this before. Rush is a huge influence on our band, and especially my drummer and I. Which actually, fun fact, my drummer's father knew Neil Peart, and he was friends with Neil Peart. And I think they went to a couple of their tours, and my drummer actually met Neil Peart, which I'm like, mm.
Hmm.
But
Hey,
to
let's watch
continue,
this video.
oh, what happened?
Let's watch this video you got.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
well,
you got to share the screen.
yeah, hold on. There is actually one video I have from Sirius XM, which really gives some good insight on their breakup. Just quick, and specifically, it talks about the last tour. This, which which is it's basically a interview that Eddie Trunk gave to Geddy Lee about what about the way Rush ended, which actually influenced me to come up with this whole idea for this video in general. Which, before I show you guys the video, I would want to give you guys a little insight on their last tour. Oh, hold on a second. I'm trying to pause it. And it has to do with it was the R40 tour, which was the 40th anniversary of their first ever tour, their first album being Rush, which came out in 1974, early 1974.
Mhm.
And it was I was actually planning to go to that concert, go to the one concert in Madison Square Garden, but because of the people I was hanging with or was supposed to go to that concert, it fell through, which I'm still kicking myself to this day for not going to because my dad is also big into Rush. Another fun fact, my dad saw Rush in the early 80s. It was either during the Signals tour or the Moving Pictures tour
Mm,
because my dad went to a lot of rock concerts in the 80s.
mm.
But specifically, the to be specific with you guys, I'm going to show you that one interview. I'm probably not going to show you the whole interview, and it's going to be what is it? It is going to be about the way Rush ended. Let me see. Can you guys see it?
Yeah, I can see it.
All right.
So are you at peace? Are you comfortable and you are at peace with the way Rush
Can you guys
ended? I
hear it?
mean, I've said this many times,
Turn it up a little bit.
and I'm not saying this, I've said this a million times without you sitting here. I don't think a band could have ended any better than the way you guys put a button on your career. Having seen that show and the way you chronologically went backwards and represented all the eras, and you didn't come out and play the farewell card to the extreme where but you kind of gave a little nod saying, hey, this is probably kind of it. I mean, the way you did it was the way, to me, the band's whole career has been done with respect to the fans and so classy. And you ended strong. I'm a big believer, no matter how much I love a band, don't stay too long at the party. Know when to get out before you start
Yeah.
saying, "Oh, that guy used to be so good."
Mm.
Having seen that show, I mean, I thought it was actually better than some of the tours that preceded it in terms of the way the band sounded. So,
I would agree.
are you happy with the way the whole thing buttoned up?
Oh yeah, I mean it was that last gig was a difficult night, but what you're talking about is really what was going through Neil's mind. You know, he was struggling throughout that tour to play at his peak because of physical ailments and other things that were going on with him, and he is a perfectionist, and he did not want to go out and do anything less than what people expected of him, and that's what drove him his whole career, and that's the way he wanted to go out, and I totally respect that. And for Alex and I, of course, you know, we're not drummers, so we don't know, and we don't take the same physical abuse. Although Alex does suffer from arthritis, and he was having a very difficult time on that tour, playing a 3-hour show.
Yeah.
So it was clear that whatever happened in the future was not going to be like that. And I spent a lot of time designing that tour with all our great creative people and trying to make sure that it told that story in reverse. And it was great fun to do. And I think my sadness was just the fact that I was so happy we pulled it off with the whole reverse
If you
chronology.
hear
I'd like to have had the rest of the
you hear
world
that, that's the
come to those
tree.
cities,
Those are the tree guys.
experience that. And that's really the only
The trees.
regret I have is that we
Yeah.
couldn't do more shows. But
Yeah, those are
in hindsight now,
cutting down.
and with the benefit of time, I'm very happy the
Let
way
me backtrack a little bit.
have had the rest of the world that couldn't come to those cities experience that. And that's really the only regret I have, is that we couldn't do more shows. But in hindsight now, and with the benefit of time, I'm very happy the way it went down. And it just didn't sit right for me to do a farewell tour and try to capitalize on that word. It just didn't work for me.
And I remember talking to you about this after the show that I was at. We were in the dressing room, we were having some food, and you were saying to me, I was mentioning to you, I thought your voice on that tour was better than it had been in a while. Like, your voice was spot on. And you had said that you had made some adjustments to your diet or something to help your voice. No dairy. I remember you telling me the story, but I mean, really, the band went out so strong. And then, of course, the documentary Time Stands Still, such a great sort of button as well on the whole thing. So I know that I speak for all the Rush fans in that it hurts when you see a band you love so much kind of end. But man, I mean, to me, you guys created the blueprint for how to do it the right way at the right time.
Well, that's really kind, and I really appreciate you saying that. You know, it wasn't the easiest thing to pull off, but I feel good about our body of work, you know, and I feel good about the way it ended, and you know, onward and upward.
So, let me just stop that right there. So yeah, that's basically that's basically the whole thing summed up. It was probably they knew when it was time to call it quits, and they did. But in that time, they said, "Hey, let's put on the best show we can, or a better show that we have been in the past recent tours." And again, I'm still kicking myself for not have going to that tour, not have gone to that tour to see them, because even when I was younger, when that tour happened, I was diehard fan of Rush, and I'm sure there's a lot of other people that wish they could have seen them more, and wish they could have just seen them in general. I wish I could have just seen them, but I think that they made the smart decision, because Neil Peart in particular, his health was already declining him by that time, and may he rest in peace.
Yeah.
Neil Peart,
Rest in peace, man.
But he knew it was time. They knew it was time, because they took a hard look at themselves in the mirror and said, "Hey, this is it. We can't get any better than this. We have to quit now while we're ahead." And a lot of bands don't realize that, or they don't stay and look and be like, "Hey, can we still perform like we did in our prime? Can we pull it off?"
I don't think a lot of bands. I mean, a lot of bands that I was in, they really didn't they really didn't think the way that I thought, because at a certain point, people change and the music changes as well, man.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm a guy that usually jumps from band to band, so I've never been really in a permanent band as of right now. I'm currently now in a permanent band,
Hmm.
but
As am I.
I mean, when I was in the underground scene, I mean, I'm still technically in the underground scene. I've been bumping from band to band. So, practice from gig to, three state tour and stuff like that. Um, it comes to a point where you have to ask yourself, like, will I be with this band for the rest of my life? And with music too, like if you there comes a point in time where you're just like, dude, I cannot play these songs anymore. Like I
Yeah.
can't. And a lot of musicians think that they could play their stuff till the end of time. I don't honestly, like, because I've like I said, I want to expand my bass playing. I want to
Hmm.
expand my knowledge on what I know and my playing. So I've always challenged myself to go to other bands, to try out for other bands and stuff like that. So, it's all about, as a musician, I guess, like knowing when to either just stop or knowing when the music isn't the same anymore. Okay. And a lot of guys think that when they make a band, they are gonna make it big. Um, Here to tell you, like the game's changed with that.
Yeah. And I hate to say it, there are even bands out there that I love that honestly should have called it quits years ago. Like Black Sabbath, for example.
Oh yeah,
I,
they should have quit while they were ahead.
yeah, I think that they broke up like 3 years ago. I think 2 or 3 years ago. I don't remember,
I think
but
it's wait, the guitarist or the bassist of Slipknot. No, the bassist of Slipknot died.
yeah, Paul Gray.
Paul Gray died. So it was the guitarist of oh yeah, it's the guitarist of Slipknot. He is into actually I was just listening to him in the car probably a week or two ago. He's making love songs now. He's talking about romance.
Hmm.
It's funny how is it he went from death, doom, and destruction and some actually pretty kick ass metal jazz to
Heavy metal
now
jazz.
creating love songs.
Yeah,
Any way to make that money, man. Any way to make that money.
yeah. It's all about what you can do and what you want to do as well.
I
And
mean, I know as a musician, I'd stay with a band until I know that there's something better, and or I will stay with a band until I know it's time for me to go.
yeah, exactly. Like you got to know when the chemistry is up as well. And it's not it's what the thing is with Rush, there it wasn't like the chemistry was non-existent. It was that they
They were
couldn't
old.
go any further with that chemistry, and they even admitted that they couldn't just continue being the band that everyone knew them for.
Yeah,
That they had to have a swan song.
there
And
was a
what were we going to
there was
say?
an album that no one picked up from Rush, and it didn't sound like Rush. It was like you remember when the Beatles did went to India and made that god awful Sergeant Pepper album.
Yeah. I mean, I like some of the Sergeant Pepper songs. I love The Day in the Life.
Okay,
I think that's
okay.
one of my favorites from
There
them.
was a Rush album that no one picked up. Everyone was like, "This isn't Rush. This is like a pop version of Rush."
Yeah,
And
I
that
think
was when they went on that was when they literally quit. That was their hiatus. Alex didn't even pick up the guitar anymore. Geddy Lee was with his family. So,
mhm. That had to have
no.
been in the 90s or in the 2000s cuz there was a there was a period where, and this is a really terrible situation I would never wish on anybody. Neil Peart lost his family. He lost his wife and his daughter, and he basically shut himself off from the world, and understandably so.
Yeah.
That he and Rush just weren't performing for a good span of years,
Mhm.
and it makes sense that in the end they would sound different, but at the same time, it's like a lot of the time bands don't realize that they're changing. I think Rush was one of those self-aware bands. Like they knew that they were changing. They knew that things were going to be different as the years went on, and
Yeah.
it was pretty prevalent in not just their music but just them in general, like them as people.
Hmm. Yeah.
And
But I think that's where certain musicians, they get a little bit diluted. Like people change, man. It's like you can't do the same music that you thought you did. Like even with my band, I'm like, yeah, man, I can do the music, but I don't think I can really do it for that long until
yeah,
somebody makes me another offer, or I
and
just get tired. Like I'm just it's either or. I'm not saying I wouldn't stay. I'm just saying like there are always like people like musicians always look for better talent, and or musicians, they don't see a good thing until it's gone, or
yeah,
some people
exactly.
just, get tired of the music. A lot of people, the problem is that you have to keep people engaged, man. You can
Yeah,
only
and
keep
that's the
people
challenge.
engaged but for so long.
Yeah, and I also wanted to bring up this other band that a lot of prog rock fans worship, and I am one of those prog rock fans. The band Yes.
Yeah.
The This is one of the bands that influenced Rush, or at least influenced Geddy Lee, because I'm gonna be honest with you guys. Uh, Chris Squire's playing. Like if you hear Chris Squire's playing and Geddy Lee's playing, it's actually fairly similar, which is
Yeah.
not a bad thing. They're both two of the greatest bassists I've ever heard in my life. They're two of my favorites all time. But I look at them now and I see, like, why are they still performing? They don't have John Anderson anymore. Chris Squire died. He had he had like a rare form of leukemia, and he died in 2015. And Rick Wakeman's not in the band anymore. The only original members of the band, or the members that people knew Yes for, were Alan White and Steve Howe. The rest of the band is just all new and random people that they got to sound like Yes. And
Mhm.
to me, that sounds like a tribute band. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, there are two original members, but when 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 the two when three of the main members that made the band sound are not even in the band anymore, I can't really acknowledge that as a band. Like it's a plain copycat, and it's not. I like I said, this is no disrespect to the band. I'm a huge fan of Yes. I love the Yes album. I love Close to the Edge and Fragile. Those are some of my favorite albums by them. But I I just don't see why they're continuing. There's only two original members, and I I I never really listened to how they sounded currently on tour, but I feel like it's just the energy and the chemistry is not the same.
Mhm.
It's not like, for example, like they have one notable concert from the, I think, 1972 or 1973. It was just right when they got Alan White, when they replaced Bill Bruford because he left to join King Crimson.
Mhm.
It was at the Rainbow Theatre in Finsbury Park, London, and I would have to say that's probably their one of their best live performances ever. And I know it's probably not a right thing to compare it to that, but like how are you going to top something that was even close to that, with only two original members of the band, and
Well,
one not being the vocalist or the keyboard player?
well, you also have to understand that, people try to live in the past,
Yeah.
people like to see like it's like meeting your old friend again. Like, yeah, you've grown up from the past, but the memories are just too good to give up.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how people, that's how I guess that's the downside of being a musician. You're always nostalgic. Like you see people, right, that you played with, and then you started to grow up. It's like, it's like that Peter Pan syndrome that we always talk about.
Yeah, and it's also like those one-hit wonders where it's like, yeah, I'm a musician. I'm like a famous musician. I'm known for just writing music and making music, and I've made many more songs. But all people will know me for are just this certain song in general. Or these sets of songs, like two, three songs, and that's it. Like that's kind of living off the memories. And that's how I look at Yes, and that's how I look at other bands too. Like it doesn't even have to do with the fact that there's only two or three original members in the band. Like Kiss, they were on a farewell tour. They've been on a farewell tour since 1998,
Mhm.
and they're still touring. And people are wondering why this is still going on. I'm not, and I'm not saying, oh, Kiss is bad. No. I've heard that they're great live, but I'm wondering why are they still doing this if they want to end things so bad?
I mean, I'm pretty sure it's the fans too. The
Yeah.
fans haven't really, come to terms with how everything changes and how the music changes for a lot of people. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's
And
it's just it's just people. I guess it's just the people um that try to keep their memories going, and the change in time. That's what I think.
all right. Oh, sorry. I got a text from my band. Um, what was I gonna say? What it's it's just some people. So I think with Rush and all these other bands, they had fans that were quite respectful of certain situations. Like at least with the Rush fans, they even knew that Rush couldn't keep this on any longer. They like it, yeah, like no one really openly said, "Hey, this is the very last tour that Rush is going to be playing." Like they kind of left the fans to interpret that, and they saw like keep in mind Rush is a band that you really have to, in order to really know about them, you have to do the research for yourself. And a lot of these bands did, a lot of their fan base, a lot of their fans in general did that. They went and did the research and saw that, like, hey, these guys are getting old. These guys are like they're not going to be able to play as well as we wanted them to, or as well as they did, say, during the Farewell to Kings era, or um, Permanent Waves or Moving Pictures. Like their 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 number is up, and I'm sometimes it couldn't it could be just that they can't play that music like the people would want them to, and that's okay.
Mhm.
Not everyone's going to be able to play their songs as well as they did, say, when they were in their early 20s full of energy, compared to when they were in their like 50s, 60s, or even 70s.
Yeah, I mean, most people can't do that anymore anyway.
Yeah.
You just have. I mean, it's just again, try to relive the glory days, knowing that times change.
Yeah, man. Like we
It's just how people are.
yeah, I think that's just really the gist of why Rush breaking up was kind of one of the best band breakups ever. Like it wasn't chaotic, everyone was respectful. They were all still talking to each other. They were still close. It's not like there wasn't chemistry. It's just they could not be a band anymore. And they acknowledged that, and the fans acknowledged that, and understandably so. Like Neil Peart, like I said, may he rest in peace, one of the greatest drummers of all time. His age was catching up to him, and he knew he couldn't physically he knew he couldn't physically play like he would have in his prime, and that wasn't his fault. It was just the band couldn't continue.
Hmm. All right, yeah,
That's
I couldn't say that better myself.
yeah, and that's honestly how I want to end it. Like Rush will always be one of the most influential and prolific rock bands that has ever lived. I've said this before, they're one of my biggest influences ever, and they always will be one of my biggest influences that I look back on and look up to and say, "Hey, how do they do it? How do they do this?" How and that's always how it's going to be. The Rush will have, their legacy will always be extraordinary and phenomenal. And I think they really went off. Their breakup really is a pinnacle of how band breakups should be. But
Yeah,
guys,
I would
oh
say
no, you
I
go
would
ahead
say
if you
it's
have
good
anything to say.
to I would say it's always I'd say it's like good to it's good to look back, at sometimes, but a lot of people need to understand, and a lot of musicians kind of need to understand that, when the times change and the music doesn't sound as it used to be, just know when to stop. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying quit while you're ahead, but know when it is time to go. Know when it is time to say, you know what, I love my fans, I love the music, I love doing this, but I think it's just time for us to stop.
Yeah, n- you can't keep at things forever. No one lives forever here, and
Yeah,
but
definitely.
that won't change. That won't change the quality of your music. Your music's always going to be your music, regardless. It's not going anywhere. It's not going to change. Like you, you yourself have to figure out, what am I going to do in the future.
Mm.
Do you have anything
Yeah.
else you want to say?
No, I think I'm good.
All right, guys. Like, comment, and share with your friends. In order, if you want to see any more of this podcast, and keep in mind, I will be working on audio versions of this podcast. I will keep you guys updated on where I will be sharing those audio versions, but just keep on the lookout for that. Thank you again, Greg, for helping out with today's episode.
Yeah, no problem.
And guys, I will see you next time. Have a good rest of your day and have a good week.
Have a good one.